Hello! In this video, I will be talking about how my perspective on combat has changed since I started playing two open-world gacha games. And I guess the best way for me to do that is to simply start from the beginning of my open-world exploration journey. I started to hear about Genshin Impact about 2 years ago, but I actually didn't start playing it until half a year later, sometime around June 2023. At that time, I was already playing another gacha game, which was Project Sekai, and I'm still playing it today. What actually got me interested in Genshin Impact was a character demo of Raiden Shogun. And so, this became my very first open world game I started playing. I was mostly drawn into the world of Genshin for its character designs, beautiful scenery, and music. I had never played any combat games before, and everything was so new to me back then. So much so that it felt like information overload in the beginning. And I have to confess, I'm a very slow learner, and I remember how frustrated I felt when I struggled to keep track of all the buttons and information I needed to know in order to survive combat. I kept dying a lot, and I mean a lot. So the very first thing I had to focus on was just understanding what keys on my keyboard were supposed to be used for moving my character around, and what keys to use for switching characters within my team. As to understanding why I needed to switch characters came much later, when I finally were able to focus on learning how the elemental reactions worked in Genshin. I remember I was lucky to get Layla early on, since she had a shielding capability. But I also kept forgetting to use her skill in order to utilize her shield, and still ended up dying a lot. Keeping track of enemy attack movements were also difficult for me, and I also remember I struggled a lot in the beginning with combat, and ended up avoiding combat if I could. Whenever there were chests with a red circle around them, I usually skipped trying to get them, since I didn't want to take the chance on it being locked due to enemies surrounding it, instead of an innocent puzzle. Another problem I had in the beginning was understanding how to level characters. I had no clue what talents and artifacts were for, and what to prioritize leveling. And there were so many different leveling systems, such as having to learn the various levels I needed to do for the characters, whether it was weapons, the character level itself, as well as having to learn to distinguish between world level and adventure rank level. And I couldn't even level my characters beyond a certain level threshold unless I had increased my world level. What was troublesome for me in the beginning was that most quests had combat in them. So once I had reached high enough level for co-op, I played with people I knew that also played Genshin Impact in order to get help with combat stuff that I had gotten stuck on. There were also periods where I got stuck for a long time in the game, because there were a few side quests that was in single mode only, and therefore I wasn't able to get any help with the combat via co-op. Now, here's where I found myself in a dilemma, or more likely a catch-22. In order for me to level up characters to become stronger, I had to do combat, and in order to survive combat, I needed to have stronger characters. And this is because the enemies kind of ended up being stronger than me early on in the game. I was like only 2 months into the game, and I was actually starting to doubt if I would continue playing the game, due to my difficulty with it being so combat oriented. So when I was told that Zhongli was coming up on a banner, I decided I would try my luck on him, since I heard that he was the best shielder in the game. Now fast forward to today, I still use Zhongli in my main team. Looking back at it, I do believe I would have quit Genshin long ago if I hadn't gotten Zhongli. But once I had him, I have to confess I got lazy, and never really ever learned how to dodge correctly in combat. And I decided that I will just play Genshin for the exploration and follow along with the story development, because that's something I really enjoy. And I'm also fine with only polling for characters I really like. It's actually something that I have been doing with previous gacha games I've played as well. I have honestly not regretted any characters I have polled for, except maybe Mawika, because she is so dependent on other Natlan characters that I ended up not using her even though I leveled her up to 90. Now, having talked a lot about how I found combat to be frustrating, I ended up trying another open world gacha game that was even more combat oriented. It's very contradicting, I know, but Wuthering Waves appealed to me because it has a futuristic look and feel to it. Science fiction is one of my favorite themes, and the character designs in that game looked interesting. Also, having been playing one open world game for more than a year, I guess I just wanted to try out another game in the same genre. And I was also kind of curious to find out if I could handle another combat system. So I began playing Wuthering Waves close to its official release, but not on the actual release day, since I was not even able to start the game on my computer back then. Although several days later, I was able to play the game. Still, being a slow learner that I am, I did find the tutorials were easy to follow, and I liked how the combat mechanics were introduced as the story progressed in a way that worked very well for me. I thought it would really take me a long time to learn how to dodge, especially knowing how lazy I became with that in Genshin. But to my surprise, it was fairly straightforward. Well, not including perfect dodging and perfect parry, since I'm still learning how to time enemy attacks for that. I did approach Wuthering Waves as I did Genshin, that is, mainly enjoying the exploration and story. But this time, I avoided leveling up too quickly, since this game also has similar leveling mechanics, like the Union level that is similar to the Adventure rank level, and the Solaris 3 level, which is equivalent to the World level. Therefore, I didn't ascend to another Solaris 3 level until I had enough pre-farmed material to be able to level up my main characters to match the higher difficulty after an ascension. That way, the gameplay definitely became less frustrating, even though this method took me longer to progress doing so. Now, I also had a similar dilemma with Wuthering Waves as with Genshin, but it wasn't related to combat this time, it was more about the story. I honestly wasn't really hooked on the story in the beginning, but like Genshin, I decided to give it some time and continue playing it a bit before deciding if this game was for me. I was very happy that the story and the way the storytelling evolved were improving with each update, and the game features were also improving so much that I actually decided that I wanted to continue playing the game. As I slowly got a little bit better at combat, I began trying out the more difficult combats, and it was definitely difficult for me, but I decided early on that I would at least just try it as long as I thought it was fun to do, and then take a break from it and only get back to it when I felt ready to have another go at it. Ever so slightly, I found myself being able to handle more and more difficult content, and I find that it's actually fun to test my limits in this game, and the challenge actually becomes my motivation to try and get better at it. So Wuthering Waves has kind of changed my perspective on combat. I have found enjoyment in the challenge it provides. I do still like the Genshin elemental combat system too, since it's really fun using elemental reactions and seeing all the effects they create in combat. But I don't really find the end content as fun, especially not the Imaginarium Theater. I have cleared the hard mode in Imaginarium Theater once, because it happened to include elements that I had many characters of. But I found that I'm not that interested in building 4-star characters that I don't like playing just to have enough characters to be able to play the higher levels of this game mode. So now I only play normal mode if I happen to have enough characters for that specific period. Also, I clear floor 11 of the Abyss, and I have been able to clear floor 12. But sadly, I don't really feel up to trying floor 12 anymore, just to get 1 or 2 more stars. As an F2B player, I feel like I can no longer keep up with how fast the difficulty of the Abyss bosses have become, especially with all the Natlan mechanics added to it. The 2 endgame modes that have interested me the most in Wuthering Waves are the Tower of Adversity and the Tactical Hologram bosses. I find there's enough for me there to keep me busy for a very long time, since I still have a lot to learn about the combat, and it will take me time to learn the various bosses' attacks and how to use my teams as best as I can. So, from not having played any combat games before I started Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, I have slowly become more interested in the combat aspects, and may try out a non-gacha combat game in the future. Even though Genshin do lack ease of exploration behind limited characters, I do feel I have managed to get some limited characters that I really enjoy playing, and it's also very helpful to me when exploring the world. Also, I'm still so curious to see where the story is going with the Traveler and the Twin. As for combat, I play it more leisurely now in Genshin. When it comes to Wuthering Waves, it is also fun to play, especially now with the new flight traversal mechanic that was added, which makes the exploration very enjoyable. And I'm very interested in learning more about Rover and how the story will progress, as well as continue to learn and improve on my combat skills. Well, these are some of the aspects that I can think of right now, how I experience these two games. And thank you for watching. Bye bye.